said earlier there have been a lot of stories. This is actually the third day that you've had these kind of stories. This is yesterday in the New York Times. Arabs and Muslims steer through an unsettling scrutiny. And our guest at the table is Yvonne Haddad, a professor from Georgetown University. Have you sensed that yourself?
Oh, yes. I had one faculty member at Georgetown yesterday stop by, and he told me that his daughter, who's a high school student, is terrified. She just is scared to go to school. People have been saying nasty stuff. And
she's a Muslim?
Yes. And she's covered. And the women who are covered are really getting the brunt of it because they're a physical symbol of Islam. And, you know, we've heard about mosques that have been attacked. Here in Alexandria, Virginia, we've had a Muslim bookstore that has been attacked by bricks. If you go to some of the areas where Muslims shop, they're absolutely empty of people because people are terrified.
We're going to have different phone lines this hour. We're going to actually take the international line away and ask Arab Americans to use the 202-628-0205. You don't have to be an Arab American if you're an Arab or a Muslim. The idea is to get that story out so we can understand what you're going through, and you can help us better understand what this all this unsettling approach to the Arab American is all about. Here's a woman. Her last name is, and I apologize to every Arab that I'm mispronouncing the name. It's Hannah. It looks like it's N-E-H-M-E-H.
Amen.
And she has on the traditional garb there. This is from the New York Times from yesterday. I'll ask you, because we had a caller tell us, why do women wear this garb and why don't you wear it?
I'm Christian, and there are Christians in the Middle East who wear the garb. If you go to Egypt, in Upper Egypt, they do. Arab Christians used to wear the garb. They've stopped wearing it, I'd say, by the end of the 19th century. But Muslims believe, those who put it on believe that it is God's commandment in the Quran. And they are following God's commandment. They're obedient to it. Now, some people put it on as a sign of modesty, but the majority of people I have interviewed in the United States who put on the Islamic dress believe that it is God's commandment.
Where were you born?
Syria. And actually, it's now part of Turkey.
And when did you come to the United States?
1963.
I have on the table, I have not, this was delivered to us late yesterday. I have not read this. It says the meaning of the Holy Quran. Is this the Holy Quran?
The Arabic part would be the Holy Quran, and that would be the only part that would be the Holy Quran. The rest of it is an interpretation or a translation, and any translation is an interpretation.
So we're looking at, it's just a page, 641. The Arabic is over here on the right, and the English is over on the left. This part is the Holy Quran.
That's right.
What is it?
It's, according to Muslims, it's the literal revelation from God. It is the word of God as revealed through the angel Gabriel to the Prophet Muhammad.
Does it say anywhere in here that killing people is good?
No.
What is, I mean, you've heard, I'm sure, this debate all week long. First of all, would these men involved in this attack, if they turn out to be the ones that are being accused of being on these planes, would a Muslim do what they've done?
Well, it depends how it's interpreted and why they've done it. If their ideology, not their religion, but their ideology is, you know, one of the fundamentalist groups who believe that the United States has declared war on Islam, and therefore they would see what they were doing as an act of resistance, not an act of terror. They would be seeing themselves as responding to American aggression, and they would see that in America's support of the State of Israel, America's silence about Chechnya, America's quote-unquote occupation of a variety of you know, areas of the Arab Gulf.
So you could get yourself pretty worked up, and
you could,
and you could wrap
also
yourself in
Iraq.
religion.
You know, Iraq is a very, very hot topic because a lot of children are suffering in Iraq, and it is seen as a result of our policies.
How long have you been in the United States?
Since 1963.
Why did you come here in the first place?
I came because my husband was studying at Harvard, and we loved this place, and we stayed.
And where is he from?
Jordan.
And are you both American citizens now?
Yes, sir. And he's an Episcopal minister.
Are you? Do you have any? I mean, we had a young fellow call up and say that this man Atta, who trained to be a pilot down in Florida, and is supposed to be on one of these planes, couldn't have been a Muslim because he drank.
That would be a Muslim believer, because in Islam it is banned to drink, and anybody who drinks would not be considered a Muslim. But there are Muslims who drink, lots of Muslims who drink.
So this fella could have been doing this for Allah and still drinking and believing all this.
I think he would have been doing it for an ideological purpose and not necessarily a believing purpose. You know, there is the religion, and you know, the question is, you know, take Timothy McVeigh. Do we think of him as doing a Christian act for God? We never thought of it that way. Why is it that when somebody is a Muslim, we always tag it as the result of his religion?
Let's go to the phones, and remember that the last number there on the screen, it'll be there in a second, that 628-0205 is for Arab Americans or Arabs or someone who is involved in the Muslim religion and maybe feeling threatened by all this. We want to hear what your story is. Tampa, Florida, go ahead, please.
One thing that I found kind of disturbing lately is that people have been saying, well, these misguided, sick individuals did this for the cause of Allah, or they're willing to die for their God. I just want to, you know, preface my saying this, that, you know, Allah is simply the Arabic word for God, and Christians, Muslims, Jews, we all worship the same God. And the caller who said before that the God of Christianity and the God of Islam are different, I'm sorry, but I think she's rather misguided. These monsters have made a perversion of our faith. And if anybody thinks that this was somehow a good deed that can be canceled out by, or their bad deeds can be canceled out by doing good deeds, I'm sorry, but they're very misguided.
Tell me about yourself. What's your own background?
I am American. My parents were from Jordan.
And are you a practicing Muslim?
Yes.
And are you feeling threatened at all? I mean, do you wear the headdress?
I haven't in a while, because I was running into some problems with it on the job and you know, in my personal life. I'm not, so I could be any number of ethnic groups, so I haven't personally been attacked, thank God.
Have you seen any examples of people saying things that make you uncomfortable in the last few days?
No, I haven't. I can't say that I have.
Okay, thanks. We did have, and I don't know if you're listening to the woman that called up earlier, and she had a long explanation of the difference between Christianity and the Muslim religion.
No, I didn't hear it. You know, I think the two religions are almost identical. The greatest correlation would be with Judaism. I think Islam and Judaism are much closer than Christianity. The differences have to deal with the Muslim perception of Jesus. They don't consider him to be an incarnation of God. They don't believe in the death of Jesus or the Trinity. And otherwise, the three religions are the Abrahamic faiths.
The idea of this hour or so is not to talk necessarily about being a Muslim. It's whether or not you feel threatened, and those who are not Muslims, whether or not you feel a negative attitude toward people that are of that faith. And because we had a caller, I think, earlier in the week that said all immigrants ought to go home.
Oh, I've had death threats myself. Sometimes when I get on TV, I get hate mail. And I get a card from New York, generally signed by some phony name, says, "Death to Muslims, go home to where you came from." I've had that, even though I'm not a Muslim, but you know, anybody who has an Arab name is vulnerable.
By the way, who wrote the Quran?
According to Muslim belief, it was you know, written down by various people, but it's revealed verbatim by God through the angel Gabriel, as revealed to the Prophet Muhammad.
When?
In between 1610 and 1622.
Garibaldi, Oregon, you're on the air.
Hi, I just wanted to make a comment about one of your earlier callers. She had said that we brought this on ourselves and that we needed to apologize. I don't think that we need to apologize to anybody. We may have sometime in the past been involved in things that we should have stayed out of. Who's to say? That's done with. But when was the last time a group of Americans got on an airplane in a foreign country and rammed that plane into a building or a Pentagon or anything, killing thousands of people? Can she think of any time that's ever happened? And are we supposed to sit back and let our country become one of those war-torn countries we see all the time. I don't want to live that way. My 16-year-old daughter saw this on the news the other night. The next day, we had a siren go off. It sounds like an air raid siren in our little town. It scared her so bad she got hysterical. I had to call 911 to find out why it was going off. She's so scared that we're going to end up with our country looking like the other countries that we see all the time because of this kind of act.
Caller, the caller that called earlier would probably say at this point that the people who live in Baghdad who were bombed during the Desert Storm situation by American planes, or the people who live in Belgrade who were bombed, the Chinese embassy, would have the same attitude that our Americans have now. What would you say to them?
The only thing I have to say on all of that is that we never deliberately got on someone else's airline and killed not only ourselves, but thousands of other innocent people.
Thanks.
Well, I mean, some people might think that, yes, I mean, I agree with you. We didn't hijack airplanes, but we did deliver some of the missiles. For example, the Shifa chemical complex, which was a pharmaceutical factory, was demolished by American missiles. The Palestinians believe that our support of the State of Israel, which delivers bombs and uses our own, both military support and political support, is American aggression. I mean, it is a matter of perception. People in Palestine daily suffer deaths, and they daily have their lives disrupted, and they believe that Israel can do it only because we support Israel.
Let's go to Boca Raton, Louisiana. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. How y'all doing this morning?
Good, sir. What would you like to say?
Well, first of all, I do not believe that Muslims that believe in their religion so much should be here in the United States to begin with.
Why?
Because this government is doing nothing but using these people as a weapon to get their crazy people, the ones that do not like Americans, into this country to do their bad work and try to make the United States look like they're the troublemakers. I think we ought to send them all back, every one of them back to Islam, wherever y'all come from, because this is not a country to live like y'all want to live here.
Now, let me see if I can get it straight. What you're saying is that our guest here this morning ought to go back to Syria.
I think if they believe in their government, they need to load them up and send them back to their government and let them practice whatever they want to practice there.
Well, no, wait a minute.
Can I answer him?
Yeah, sure.
My government is the government of the United States. I'm an American citizen. I'm just as grieved as every other American citizen. And I find that, quite offensive. Just because I was born someplace, that you would think that I should be thrown out. And I think that is not the America I believe in. It's not the America I swore allegiance to. I am, surprised at your attitude.
I'm sure you are, ma'am, but we also have problems here in the United States, just like our welfare system, and the good suffer for the bad. And when you have acts like this that are happening from people like you that claim that they love this country, and they're assisting these governments in this country to get in here, make these acts, the good suffer for the bad. Y'all all need to go home. Thank you.
I haven't done anything. I just teach in a university. There are Muslim doctors and Christian doctors who are of Arab background who are serving American people. They've all volunteered to go in.
And you're a Christian.
I'm a Christian. My husband is an Episcopal minister.
And he's a Jordanian by birth.
Right. And we haven't collaborated with any government. We are American citizens. We are loyal American citizens. I don't understand why you think we are collaborating with anybody or perpetrating any of these criminal acts against us. We're Americans.
I think the last figure I saw that something like 9% of the Americans are born in another country, something like 25 million people. And there are roughly 6-7 million Muslims in the United States.
Something like that,
Do you know how many Arab-born people are in the United States?
About 3 million.
Let's go to Ottawa, Canada next. Good morning.
But, you know, most of them are Christian.
Good morning.
Ottawa, you're on the air.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Yes. Good morning. I have a little bit of notes about what happened in the U.S. I feel sorry about the civilians, but you have to understand what's going on in the world today.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Libya.
And are you a Muslim?
Yes, I am.
How long have you been in Canada?
19 years.
So tell us what you think is going on in the world today.
Well, what I have a feeling, civilians, they're not related to this. But the American policy makes me very, very mad. You know what I mean? If you see the suffering in the Iraq, in the Palestine, it's really, Americans, they have to understand, especially the civilians, this is an act of the American government. Like their policy against Arabs and Muslims, this is not right.
So would you say that the 18 that were in those airplanes were justified in doing what they did?
No, by any means. No, it's not justified. These people, whoever done it, we don't know yet. But whoever done it, if assumed is Muslim, they done it because of anger. Very tremendous anger happening against the U.S. And the government, so far, the American government, they don't ask why. Why it's happening to the Americans.
Is he right about the anger?
The anger is there. I mean, it was very palpable. And I think part of it is that we have stopped all diplomacy or even any attempt of showing that we're concerned. And
Concerned for
the suffering of the Palestinian people or the Iraqi people. I mean, we started with this administration coming in and saying we're going to alter sort of our policy towards Iraq, and it didn't work, and then that was dropped. And so people see that the Iraqi children are still suffering. And on the Palestinian issue, the Bush administration has a hands-off policy, but its tone has been total support of Israel, or at least it is interpreted that way over there, that Sharon has been given a green light to go ahead and assassinate people at will, wherever he wants. And so it was seen as even more supportive of Israeli, quote-unquote, oppression.
What was your first reaction when you heard this had happened?
I knew it was coming. I mean, I knew people were angry, but I had no idea who would do it. But I knew that something would, you know, some people they're so frustrated. They're so angry. I mean, I read the literature.
Can you read Arabic?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And if you read Arabic newspapers...
You know they're angry. You know they're very angry because they see American one-sided support of Israel and no even diplomatic language, you know, saying go get those guys and they're terrorists, and no compassion for the suffering of the Palestinian people who are placed in sort of like reservations. I mean, they have dug all around their little towns, and they have, you know, their way of life has been degraded. They have no jobs. They can't go to school. And we said, stop the terror. And the way they experience it is that it's Israeli terror, because they're the ones going in with big tanks, and their little kids fighting with little stones. And so this image contrasted is something that we have not seen very much on our television. I think the American people have been sort of distanced from that, because images of Palestinian, you know, what was happening on the ground in Palestine did not make the American news, the 6 o'clock, 6:30 news. It did make it all over the Arab world. And you had the Jazeera television network that was broadcasting this, and the whole Arab world, Muslim world, was identifying with these people that are suffering now for almost a year.
Santa Barbara, California, good morning.
Yes, hello.
You're on the air.
I wanted to call to express my deep concern that the American people, citizens of America, in their individual retaliation to Arabs in this country, in my opinion, that is a form of terrorism, and I just hope and pray that we do not lower ourselves in this country to the same types of acts that have just happened to us. This needs to be left to our government and officials, and our citizens need to let them handle it and not take individual retaliations out on anyone, because I'm a very proud American and I'm very angry about this, but as individuals, we need to leave it alone, or we're doing the same thing as the terrorists did.
Thanks. What are the chances, from what you've been listening to this week from our officials, that we will leave this alone?
I don't think we're going to. I think Bush is being tested, and that's the way he's being presented on television, and I think he's being challenged to do something, and I think he will do something.
So what happens, in your opinion, if we decide that we're going to go, first up, we're going to strike Afghanistan at the supposed spot where training was done, or the Bekaa Valley, or they pick 4 or 5 different locations? What's going to be the reaction then?
We'll create some more people who are very, very angry, who eventually will think of ways to get back at us. I mean, this is sort of a recipe.
We shouldn't do it there?
I think we should punish those who were the perpetrators. But, you know, when you go in and wipe out a whole place, you're getting a lot of, you know, people who are just innocent people. And Israel, you know, has demonstrated that, because that's the Israeli policy. When somebody hits someone, they go in and indiscriminately hit the place, and you have collective punishment. And what happens is somebody loses his father or his brother, and they get angry and they hit back. And I expect Americans to get angry. I am angry. I'm very disturbed about what happened. I mean, it's horrible, but it doesn't solve anything to just punish people just because they happen to be from a specific place, or because they look different or they speak different.
Let's go to Ithaca, New York, on our Arab-American line. Good morning.
Hello. My great-grandparents came to the United States from Lebanon at the turn of the century through Ellis Island on my father's side, so I'm half Lebanese.
Are you Muslim or Christian?
I'm Christian.
But in Lebanese, heavily Christian?
In all honesty, my family has been, it's been such a long time since we've been in the United States that I don't really know, but I have quite a few Lebanese Christian friends.
What do you, now, have you had any backlash after this?
No, everyone I know knows that I'm half Lebanese and half Scottish. My mother's family has been in the United States for more than 300 years. And I am hanging an American flag in front of my house. I'm an Episcopalian. I was raised Roman Catholic. And regarding the caller from Alabama, I can only imagine people praying for him, because he really is not behaving as a Christian. And he is under the control of people who live through hatred. They're the ones who are controlling him right now.
You're talking about the caller from Baton Rouge? The fellow this morning, just a few minutes ago?
Yeah, okay, I apologize. I had the wrong location.
No, that's all right. He was from Baton Rouge.
Okay. You know, it is the goal, in my opinion. I have 4 children, and I've told them this, they're young, that it is the goal of terrorists to promulgate hatred throughout the world. And by whatever actions that we do that emanate from calmness and a spirit of complete and utter respect, we can only defeat them. I wish that, as well as the pictures that we all need to see to know what's happening, to know what's going on, that we would also see Christians and Muslims and dark and white people and people of no faith and people of all faiths encircling mosques and churches and religious and community centers, and send those pictures out into the world to show that we are not going to be controlled by their hatred.
Okay, thanks. If you've just joined us, we're talking about this issue of Arab Americans and whether or not the backlash they're getting during this week has been severe, and it doesn't matter what it has been. We're interested in hearing from you. You have any reaction to her?
You know, just to go back to the question you asked, is she a Christian? A lot of the Lebanese who emigrated initially in the early part of the century were Christian, and now we have an increasing number of Muslims coming. As to the state of Lebanon, probably the majority of the people right now are Muslim.
want to read to you what Daniel Pipes, do you know who he is?
Oh, of course.
And what's his point of view in life?
His point of view is that Palestinians are all terrorists. Muslims probably should go back, because he wrote that famous article, "The Muslims Are Coming, the Muslims Are Coming." He's writing a book on Muslims in America. He doesn't believe they belong here.
Okay, but listen to what he says in the National Review this week. It just came out this morning. "Make no mistake, the United States will hunt down and punish those responsible for these cowardly acts," unquote. So spoke President Bush in his address to the nation soon after the catastrophic events of September the 11th. I agree with the president's sentiments, but disagree with two specifics in his statements. First, there was nothing cowardly about the attacks, which were deeds of incredible, albeit perverted, bravery. Second, to, quote, hunt down and punish, unquote, the perpetrators is deeply to misunderstand the problem. It implies that we view the plane crashes as criminal deeds rather than what they truly are, acts of war. They are part of a campaign of terrorism that began in a sustained way with the bombing of U.S. Embassy in Beirut in 1983, a campaign that has never since relented, occurring with almost predictable regularity a few times a year. Assaults on Americans have included explosions on airliners, at commercial buildings, and in a variety of U.S. governmental installations. Before last week, the total death toll was about 600 American lives.
He's right. But at the same time, if you know, do we count how many Iraqis were killed in the Gulf War?
Do you have any idea how many?
I've seen, you know, some statistics like about 100,000, especially at the end of the war when the army just tried to finish the Iraqi army as it was running away.
Have you been over to that part of the world?
No, not Iraq recently. I've been to Egypt. And
Would you say that people, the average person who lives in Baghdad, feels the same way that the average person in America does about the hatred because of the bombing or because of the planes flying into the tower?
I think that they know that they are suffering, that they don't have all the amenities. Now, our government thinks that it's because Saddam Hussein takes the money and uses it for his own purposes, that we are giving them enough money so he can feed them and provide medical help for them. I've seen reports from some of the churches and some of the human rights groups that say that there isn't adequate food, adequate medical care, and they blame America. Because, you know, we're proud. We say we have the best containment policy in history. And they even had. You know, we're proud. We strut around and say, we are the mightiest nation in the world, and we're going to do this to you, and we do it. And so, and then we're sort of, you know, surprised that they react to it.
Gwen, Michigan, you're on the air with Professor Haddad from Georgetown. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Brian. Ms. Haddad, you have every right to be in this country. As far as I'm concerned, you're an American citizen.
Thank you.
But I'm really confused because in the Gulf War, I believe that, you know, we were asked in there to protect maybe not so much the little country, but Saudi Arabia. But it always seems that it's always America did this or America did that, and we're always blamed for everything. I watch C-SPAN, different newscasts, and being disabled, and I don't know what you want. I don't know what the Arabs want. Being from Detroit, around Dearborn, there's a heavy Arab population, and it always seems that we're doing wrong. In terms of Israel and you know, Palestine, what is it that, you know, we're supposed to do? Arafat is you know, what didn't he participate as Black September in the Olympics as a terrorist? And in Israel, what are we supposed to do? Tell Israel what to do? Or are they going to listen to us?
Thanks.
Well, I'll tell you, I wrote an article on this comparing Arab attitudes towards American intervention in the Gulf and American non-intervention in the Palestinian issue. They see a parallel. You may not see that, but they see a parallel. The parallel is this. You have one nation, Kuwait, that invaded Saudi Arabia. And you have Israel that invaded the West Bank, and it invaded...
Kuwait invaded Saudi Arabia?
No, I'm sorry.
I mean, Iraq invaded
Kuwait. Yeah, I'm sorry. Thanks for correcting me. But they see a parallel. The United Nations, the United States and the United Nations forces went into Kuwait in order to liberate Kuwait, because they had given an ultimatum to Saddam Hussein and said, get out or else. He didn't get out. So we went in and liberated it. Here is Israel. It has been occupying these territories since 1967. The United Nations has come with several resolutions that they should give it up, and they haven't. And the question is, why was America so adamant in implementing that United Nations resolution and not the one in Palestine? And you may not see the parallels, but they see the parallel. And they're waiting because they see the United States responsible because it has assumed universal power and saying, we believe in justice, and they feel that they have been unjustly treated. And the question is, do we understand where they're coming from?
For Professor Yvonne Haddad from Georgetown University, we go to Lafayette, Indiana. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir. Where are you from originally?
Syria.
And are you an American?
Not yet.
Okay, go ahead.
But I want to become an American. I love this country. And we came here for a better life. My children are American. And
they were born, your children born here?
I'm sorry?
Your children were born here?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I'm outraged with what happened. There's no reason for this. So that's my comment. I feel the suffering of the people. And I have many people around me here who are American who said that I should be aware and should, be careful and things like that because of the hate crimes that are happening. And I don't see a reason for that.
You're in the Middle West and in a small town in Indiana. Have you had any backlash at all since this happened there?
Well, no, nothing direct. Only just the friends around me warning me. But so far, people were wonderful here. People that I work with, everybody is wonderful. And they understand the difference between the fanatics and real believers in Islam.
How far away are you from becoming a citizen?
I would say a few years, maybe.
When you see the talk about all-out war, and I'm sure you know that bombs could be dropping on the part of the world where you came from, what's your reaction to that?
I'm scared. I'm worried about my family there. They have done nothing. They adore America, actually. They love America. And we look up to America. So I don't understand.
All right, sir, thanks. What could this government do, in your opinion, that would be able to avoid the kind of backlash coming the other way?
Well, I think that we have to prove who we're hitting at, that, that what we're doing is justified. If it's not, if we're just lashing out, it's not going to do it. We need to show exactly who did it, and then if we're going to punish somebody, punish the right person, and not do it to our satisfaction that we can go in and bomb. And that, I think, is very important. It's very hard. It's very hard to be restrained when you see, body parts, when you see what happened in New York. It is horrible.
Do you know anybody that is an Arab that said to you this week, I'm getting out of this country, that things are going to be really rough for me?
I haven't. I haven't heard that, but I've heard people say, I'm staying home. I've had, my sister called me from Canada. She said, don't speak out, don't go on television, hide. But that's a reaction of what it's like to be in Syria, and I feel this is America, and I can speak, and I have the freedom. Most people don't exercise it. You get a reaction to it, but I really believe that, we should be able to explain what happened. It doesn't mean it is justified. What happened is unjustifiable.
Terre Haute, Indiana. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. I wanted to address the gentleman that, I use that word loosely, that called from Baton Rouge. First of all, I appreciate you being on C-SPAN this morning. God bless you and courage. This is a very racist country, and this guy is representative of, I'm sorry to say, a lot of a lot of people in this country that think because they're Americans, they're Christians. They have no sense of Christianity at all and what it means. They're just fearful, and they're mostly cowards, and he's probably hiding under his trailer. I just wanted to express my sentiments to that gentleman, and Baton Rouge is not missing a village idiot. So,
thanks. Earlier, I gave out the rough statistics that there are about 1.2 billion Muslims in the world.
Mm-hmm.
There are about 2 billion Christians. Of those 2 billion, a billion of them are Catholic. We're talking about a world of 6 billion people overall.
My impression is that the Muslims and the Christians were of equal numbers, but I may be wrong.
Oh, well, I
don't
checked
know.
in the World Book. I don't think so. But anyway, forget what that.
Right, yeah, that's okay.
I guess my question to you, though, is
Right.
from watching the Muslim world, even though you're a Christian all your life, who lives their religion more, the Muslim or the Christian, from what you say?
It depends. I mean, what we're talking about. I mean, I grew up as a child in Syria, and the city I grew up in was Aleppo, and we were 25% Christian. Syria has about 10% Christian, and as a minority, you tend to live your life. Your social life is organized around religious institutions, and you find that is happening in the United States. As Muslims come to the United States, they have formed mosque institutions that have become sort of like centers, and where people come together as families. And we see a transformation in how Islam is practiced. In the Middle East, they don't go as families to the mosque. The men go to the mosque. But here in the United States, it has become like, Islamic centers. And so, although only about 10% of the Muslim population in the United States practices religion, that is, goes to the mosque, we see that, as a minority, you tend to, minority religion, you need to practice more. But here in the United States, we have some Christians that are very, very devoted. And, people like Pat Robertson and Jerry Falwell actually have in their worldview theology a special role for Islam, in which, if you sort of watch their telecasts, they're happy that there is a war over there because it's going to be the fulfillment of prophecy. And they see that the Muslims and the Jews are going to have a war, and eventually all the Jews are going to be wiped out, and only 144,000 are going to convert to Christianity. And so, there are various Christian theologies or ideologies or whatever you want to call them, and people who are very devoted. And, when I grew up in Syria, most of the people were not practicing Muslims, but they were Muslims.
This morning at about 10:45 a.m., there will be a memorial service in this town at which the president will attend, and there will be singing of God Bless America. The Lord's Prayer will be said. I'm just looking down the list here, but the main thing I wanted to point out was Battle Hymn of the Republic was closing hymn. But Dr. Billy Graham will give the sermon this morning. As we continue our discussion here, leading up to the House coming in at 9, Arlington, Texas, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning. I am an American Muslim who converted 11 years ago, and I was a Christian. I have experienced Tuesday afternoon bigotry and racism comments, the same as I did during the Oklahoma bombing, where I was driven off the road because I wear hijab and jilbab, and I was put in the hospital for 3 weeks because of it. We've had mosque bombed here, windows shot out. I am petrified to leave my house.
Let me ask you what may sound like a shallow question. Is it worth it to you to go through this?
This is part of my religion. This is my obligation to show my obedience to God.
Why do you believe in the Muslim religion?
Because there was, it's a purity, it's a way of life. You do everything in your life according to please God. There's no color in it. There's no discrimination. We are to respect all religions, Christians, Jews, and I just found there was more purity of a lifestyle to it.
Do the Christian religion or the Jews not respect others?
No, that's not it. This is our obligation to respect these religions because they also came from God.
Now, what about the last week? Have you had discrimination the last week?
Oh, yes. Tuesday afternoon, I was spit at and had stones thrown at my car, and people in my own complex had made derogatory comments to me.
What do you say to them?
What can you say? It's just a lack of education. I have an older brother who's very racist and has even made the comment that all Arabs need to be killed. And I am married to a Middle Easterner.
From what state?
He's a Palestinian from Jordan.
What's his reaction to this?
He's as angry as I am about these monsters who are hiding behind the religion, saying that these are religious ideology. It has nothing to do with our religion. Our religion condemns murders. And he's as angry and wants to see these people not just prosecuted, want to see them taken care of.
Thanks. Your reaction, Professor?
That's, the converts get a very tough time because their parents and their relatives don't understand why they have given up on Christianity. I've done a survey I've interviewed 113 American women who have converted to Islam, and there is a general fear and distrust of why they converted.
Do they all wear the...
Most of them do, because they become devoted to the religion.
And of the 113, what's the overall reason for joining the religion?
I asked them, at one time I thought that maybe they joined because they got married. And I found out they converted before they got married. And for a lot of them, some of the interviews is they found it a better lifestyle. I found out that there was a large number of Methodists and Catholics. And at first I thought, okay, maybe they had something to do with it. And then I looked at the statistics, and America has a large number of Methodists and Catholics, more than other faiths. But there were Baptists who had converted. And I think part of it is that they believe that the American lifestyle of promiscuity is very hard to take. I think some women find American feminism had gone too far and has degraded the role of women, and so you have this emphasis on purity and a wholesome lifestyle. It varies from one person to another.
Walnut Creek, California. Good morning.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to comment about a few things. First of all, to say that as an Arab American, I'm disgusted at what happened over at the World Trade Center. That was one of the most deplorable acts I've ever seen in my life. I have 3 children here, and there's a lot of Arab Americans living here, and we could have been up in that tower. Any one of us could have been up there or anywhere.
Now, were you born here?
I was born here. My children were born here. My brothers and sisters were born here. My father was born in Palestine.
Now, you're out on the East Bay area of San Francisco. How much of your background folks are living in that area? I mean, how many Arab Americans out in your area?
I've been in this area for a good 30 years plus, and as far as the racism aspect of it, I have rarely had any racism towards me.
Any this week?
No, not at all. None at all this week. And I got to say something. I think I'm really wondering if, the press, by bringing even the subject up, is, I don't want to say instigating it, but just by bringing up the subject and making people aware of it, I wonder if they're creating racism and creating people to do that.
There's a lot of press on it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of press on it. And, another thing I do have to say is that part of the problem with Americans understanding what's happening and why this is happening and why they have this perception that Arabs are, they have a negative attitude towards America has a lot to do with the Israeli relationship with the Palestinians. Right now, Palestinians are being murdered and slaughtered by the Israeli military.
We lost him somehow. Sorry. Go ahead.
I think there are about 50,000 Arab and Muslims in the San Francisco area from our survey. There are quite a few mosques, but there's a large contingent of Arab Christians also.
Where are the largest groups besides Detroit?
New York City has over 100 mosques. Washington area has about 350,000 in Northern Virginia.
You were nodding your head when he said that press may be
Well, it's something I'm concerned about. I mean, the more we talk about it, we focus attention on the Arab community in the United States, and people who are angry and want to lash out suddenly think, I can do something about it. So I've been concerned about that.
Well, our reason, for instance, for doing this program was because of some of the callers.
I understand.
No. I mean, I just wanted to explain.
Yeah,
some of the callers were calling up and saying the things that, and not that many, but the fellow from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Oh, absolutely.
All
I mean,
immigrants go home.
Right, and we've had mosques, they've thrown pig blood on a mosque. They've shot at the mosque outside Houston. So there's a whole list of all the vandalism and acts of aggression.
In this article by Laurie Goodstein and Gustav Niebuhr, it says here, in Denton, Texas, the police are investigating a firebomb attack that damaged the Islamic Society of Denton's mosque early yesterday in suburban Cleveland. I'm going to mispronounce it. Sukhwant Singh, a Sikh priest.
Right, these are the Sikhs. They got hit too, and they're not even Muslim.
Who lives at the Guru Gobind Sikh temple, awakened early Wednesday to find bottles filled with gasoline hurled in the temple's windows and flames pouring out. No arrests have been made. In Louisiana, schools in Jefferson Parish were closed on Wednesday after officials reported that students of Middle Eastern origin were being taunted and harassed. On Long Island, a market in Smithtown owned by a native Pakistan was the target of what the police considered a probable arson attack Wednesday morning. It goes on.
Yes, it's there.
Morgant City, Louisiana, you're on.
Yes, good morning, Brian. What I'd like to do is offer my deepest apologies for what has been perceived as all Louisiana people. There's enough hurt in this country right now without any more bigotry or hatefulness going on. My second remark is the United States, we were attacked, and the price that we're going to have to pay in the long run with military intervention and all that, the price will be much higher on throughout the world. And again, my apologies for the remarks that were made. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thanks. For somebody who just joined us, there were some strong anti-Arab remarks made by a man from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and that's why that gentleman called. Atlanta, you're next with our guest, Professor Yvonne Haddad of Georgetown University. Go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm calling. I want to ask a question to the professor. I want to know, how does she feel that she's saying that the Arab nations are suffering when they are passing out candy, jumping in the streets, and burning flags? How does she feel about that?
That was an incident in one of the small towns in Palestine, and those are people.
Ramallah?
Yeah, in Ramallah. And I understand there was one group in Nablus, and that video was suppressed. But the Ramallah people have been under siege. They have had their town sort of isolated. The Israeli army had dug trenches all around it. The students can't go to school, people can't go to work. And they believe that all their suffering is from the United States because it supports Israel.
Let her react. Go ahead.
Are claiming to be an American, but then you always have something to say when someone says something about the Arabs.
I'm sorry, I'm not claiming to be an American. I am an American.
What I have to say, I'm from Israel. I'm 30 years old. I have 4 kids, and I've been in the United States since I'm 4 years old. When I hear that they are taking our Israeli army soldiers, taking them through a window, slicing their private parts off, and throwing them out the window, these are not human beings. To go through a building and kill 20+ thousand people, that is not a human being. You cannot say you're an American by thinking that you're a professor and thinking that you can sit up here and just, say the Arabs are this, they're feeling that the Jews are this, that America is with the Israelis. America is with the side that thinks that they are right. We go through people going through bombs in restaurants while sitting down to enjoy a lunch. There's things that they're going and burning, graves of people that are already dead. I mean, what kind of people are you? I mean, I don't understand how to what extent do you go on killing people? Do you also believe that if you kill yourself, you'll go to heaven?
I don't believe in killing anybody. I've never killed anybody, and I'm actually a pacifist. I'm against war. I don't believe it solves anything. But if you look at what's happening there, the Israelis also have killed people while they were sitting down to eat their dinner, or they were talking on. If you look back. A lot of the violence from Hamas started after the Israelis had the engineer he was talking on the phone and his phone exploded and he died. And there were retributions as a result of that. People were avenging it. All I'm saying is that there is a misunderstanding in the United States about how the Arabs feel. And I was trying to explain where they were coming from. I do not condone what happened. I am against violence, and I'll repeat that again and again. I don't think that it would solve anything. I think what happened in New York and here in Washington is horrendous, is horrible, and I wish we could have stopped it before it took place.
Nashville, you're next. Nashville, you're next.
Yes, sir. I'm an Iraqi refugee. I've been here since 1993.
You say Iraqi?
Yeah.
Why did you come here?
Why I come here? I'm actually a refugee, and first, when they started the whole thing in 1991, and Bush said if Iraqi people will get Saddam Hussein, we're going to help him from the air and some like that. So we do the whole revolution. It's like 25 states failed with no government. And then when we get too close to Baghdad, and all kind of airplane flying, so they push us to the border. It's some kind of game or something. They get us to Saudi Arabia. We stay in Saudi Arabia almost 2 years and a half. And I know some people, they steal in Saudi Arabia over there. And then when we come over here, we don't have no choice. They squeeze us over there in Saudi Arabia. They cannot let us go back to our country. And it looked like a jail over there. They said, okay, so now where do you want to go? They opened the border for us. Where do you want to go? So everybody want to go. Some want to go to Europe. Some want to go to the United States. They just want to get out of there, It's terrible. Now, when we come over here, because we don't have no choice, and a lot of people, why you come over here? Why you don't go back to your country? How I go back to my country? I don't know. It's a lot of people talking all kinds of stuff. There's no way I can go back to my country.
Are you comfortable in this country at this point?
Yeah, it's not that bad, but I'm comfortable with it.
All right, thanks. Your reaction?
I think a lot of Muslims are very happy to be in the United States. They believe that they are Americans. I've been doing a lot of work on Muslims in America. A lot of the immigrants who came in the 60s and 70s felt that, they maintained their identity for a while, but now their children are American, and they're changing. I'm writing an article on how we have created now an American Islam, which is very different than being Muslims living in America. And they identify with America. I've been to several of the meetings last year in which the leadership is sitting down talking about what do we do to become more involved in America, because we've been on the edges, sort of suspicious because they hate us. We've got to change this attitude. So there is a lot of ferment. But in his case, it is a tragedy. There are a lot of
Did he have no choice?
He had no choice.
So he's here in the United States and he had no choice?
No choice. No choice, because he rebelled against Saddam Hussein at the instigation of President Bush, the father, who said, rebel against Saddam, and we're coming. And he rebelled. And so when
he would just assume, I should ask him, if he wanted to stay home.
He was expelled. And there are some today in Saudi Arabia in, camps, war camps. And nobody wants them.
Elkhorn City, Kentucky, good morning.
Thank you for C-SPAN. Thank you for having the courage to come on. I really appreciate you. God bless you. I have 3 quick points to make, and then I'll hang up and listen. The first one is that I'm a fundamental Southern Christian, and I'm no more related to the Nazi Party or the Ku Klux Klan than Muslims in this country are related to what happened on the 11th. The second thing is that you completely got Falwell and Robertson's interpretation of Revelation wrong. Check out the Jenkins LaHaye Left Behind books. The third thing is a Christian that's born in a person that's born in a Christian home isn't a Christian any more than a person that's born in a garage is a car. We fiercely believe that everybody should be presented the gospel and have a chance to reject it or accept it for themselves. And that's the thing that makes us very, very disliked among Jews and among Muslims, because they don't want their children being told these things. Yet that's the essence of freedom, is to have choices in religion and have the right to say what you believe and to present it to other people. And I thank you very much for listening to me, and I'll stop and listen now.
I really appreciate your comment. My mother was a Reformed Presbyterian, and I would say she was a fundamentalist Christian. I was raised in that home, and I was born again as a child, and I thoroughly understand what you're saying.
In Syria.
In Syria. There were American missionaries. My father was Greek Orthodox. My mother was Presbyterian. I thoroughly understand what you're saying, and I've been through 3 seminaries. I know the theological information. I've studied Islam, and I got a PhD in Islamic studies. There is a problem that Muslims and Jews have with the Christian message to convert. We have that problem right now in Afghanistan, but we also have it in Saudi Arabia, where people who were preaching were stopped. But the Muslims are enjoying preaching in the United States. They have converted probably about 100,000 Christians and some Jews.
She said that the Muslims don't like Christians or Jews, don't like the religion. I mean, we had a call earlier that said just the opposite.
They don't like to be preached to. They don't like to be proselytized or converted. They want to protect their children from going astray.
We're running out of time. We're
Sure.
going to the house. Where did you get your PhD?
Hartford Seminary.
Where?
In Hartford, Connecticut.
How about your undergraduate?
Beirut College for Women, which is an American school. And I also have been to University of Wisconsin and Boston University School of Theology.
El Toro, California. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. I'd like to say that I'm just like Joe anybody, and I didn't know what religion was until I challenged and then said, hey, God, if you're there, prove it to me. And when I could read quantum physics and understand it, had a good education, I picked up the Bible and it hurt to read it. So I knew it was the truth. I also checked out the Quran. That's a good book, too. We've got to make a decision here. We're at a crossroads. We have to make a decision whether we're going to practice what we preach, forgive, and know what evil is, and know what good is, and make a decision. Because if we don't make a decision now, our God's going to make a decision for us.
Columbus, Ohio. You're next with Professor Yvonne Haddad. Good morning.
Good morning, Professor. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning.
What I'd like to say is, first of all, I'm a Syrian of Arab extraction. I'm not an Arab-American. I fought in Vietnam. I was wounded. I'm on the adjunct professorship at Ohio State University, and I'm for all hard-working Americans. But we're making one common mistake here. We're introducing religion. Render to Caesar what is Caesar's. Those countries over there came against us in a defiled manner. And we have the right and the duty to stop it. And we must act unequivocally so that the bombers, that they are brave, very brave. They're not cowards. They're extremely brave. But we must indeed stop them unequivocally. I'd like to hear a response to that.
I absolutely agree with you. We have to stop bombers. We have to stop criminals. But I don't think that we have countries that have come against us. I don't think we have proved that, and that's what I'm asking, that we sort of have some patience in order to figure out who did it and then punish the ones that perpetrated it, not go towards collective punishment.
We're going to be going to the House floor very soon. I'm going to grab this call from Seattle. Thank our guest, Professor Haddad, for coming this morning. Seattle, you're on the air.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Richard Winkler from Seattle, and I wrote down what I was going to say. It's about 12 lines, and here it is. Of course, we should not be harassing the Muslims that are living in this country unless they try to harm Americans. That being said, I do support the use of overwhelming military force against Afghanistan, Iraq, and Iran, up to and including the use of nuclear weapons. The Arab world consists of a collection of dictatorships and tyrannies that have no respect for their own people. We should act with the full moral certainty that we are the people who are defending the right of the individual to life and happiness on this earth against a culture that glorifies death. In using nuclear weapons, we are faced with a choice of mass killing of a people of these countries against permitting the continued mass killing of Americans. We've been practicing a policy of appeasement against these people for years that has resulted in nothing but emboldening them. We are in the unique position of having the means to defend ourselves and wipe out the source of terrorism in one swift blow, and we should do it.
Thanks, caller. I have to let you go because I'm afraid we're going to have to go to the house. You've got just a few seconds.
I mean, two of the countries he mentioned are not even Arab, Afghanistan and Iran, and he wants to obliterate them, but we are for human life. I found that sort of inconsistent, but such is life.
Professor Yvonne Haddad, thank you very much for
You're welcome.
bringing us your background and your education and your point of view. Good to have you on the program. And we're going to go now to the House floor. A couple of program notes.